All right, welcome to the Expansion Chamber, episode 3. I'm your host, Midas of Control the Gun, and joining me again, I've got Pete of TFN15 and Nightwood Guns. Pete, you want to introduce yourself to the people?
Yes, I do. Hello, people. Sorry, I'm not showing my face yet. It's strictly a work thing, and we're talking guns. And I work in a terrible industry. Not for long though. But I'm Pete of TFN15. Find me at TFN15 on YouTube and TFN.15 on Instagram. We like guns, LARPing, training, all that good stuff. Jiu-jitsu, yeah, all that. Let's do it.
Brett?
I am Brett of Nightwood Guns.
Hey, Brett.
Just hit 9,000 subscribers on YouTube. That's pretty cool. So check out my YouTube channel, Nightwood Guns, and on Instagram at Nightwood Guns.
All right, so we're going to talk about a couple things today. It's going to be a little more of a general podcast. There's not a whole lot of gun news this week, so we'll just kind of talk about stuff, ramble for a bit, and that'll be it. I'm also running a camera today, but my autofocus is trash, so like that. So I might either turn it off halfway through or like shoot it or something. We'll see.
Wait, isn't there one little stitch before we get into that our topics? One little stitch of gun news. Isn't there something about the brace rule that came out? Like something about it's kind of unconstitutional and it may be getting kicked back to the ATF.
Yes. The House Republicans are trying to do some. I completely forgot about this. Use some act or something that the House has power over to kick it back. I don't know if it'll happen.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that's basically the news. But I literally completely forgot about it because at this point, I don't even care what the government's doing about anything. And I don't think they're going to accomplish anything good for us.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they literally let a spy balloon hover over our nukes for 3 days straight. So
that's some news.
You know, it's like people are like, why didn't they shoot it down sooner? And then their answer was like, well, they didn't want debris to fall on people. How did it even enter our airspace? Why not shoot it down before?
Why? Yeah, when it was over like the ocean.
Yeah, exactly.
Or actually, you know, there are multiple balloons. My sources are telling me there are up to 7 balloons, but one was coming in from Canada. So why? I mean, I know why. The answer is it's because Trudeau. All right, but you know, why wouldn't the Canadians shoot down that balloon before it even left their airspace, right? Like, you know, they don't have any concerns? I guess not. And also, I don't buy that Bozeman, Montana, or Montana in general is so overpopulated. You can't sink a Chinese balloon. And by the way, the Chinese are very mad. They're very, very angry about their weather balloon that they sent over because it's absolutely not a spy balloon.
Secret.
Yeah. Exactly. But I mean, it's been one. I think the simulation has some glitches in it finally, you know, and it's been a very strange week in that regard.
Maybe it's a Hollow Sun spy balloon.
It has to be.
If you guys don't get that reference, go check out Nightwood Guns video review on the EPS carry.
Word.
You'll get the joke.
Good review.
Speaking of Nightwood Guns, I do want to say I just finished his first book. He did send it to me, so I am essentially a shill. But it was really good. And if you guys like short novels that are written well and aren't garbage, this is definitely something to check out. Like, it's not really long. There's a sequel book that I also have, or follow-up book. I don't know what it's called in the book world, but they're really good. And so if you want a book to read, check this out. Brett is not paying me to say this. He actually paid me not to say anything today, but I'm saying things anyway. So.
Yep, I have read the book too, and it's very good.
Well, I will tell you this. While we were talking in the pre-show, I went and I used some of my hard-earned credit card points and then picked it up. It's not expensive either. It's like $8 or $9 on Amazon. So definitely don't be cheap. Get that book. It's going to be rad. I'm very excited. I like books that I can read in one sitting because I read a lot of lengthy books that I've been reading them forever. So
I did read this in about maybe a little over an hour. I am a fast reader, but maybe 2 hours for like the slower-brained people. So.
Oh, yeah. I have a very smooth brain.
It's like I wrote it to be cinematic, you know. So it reads more like a movie than it does like Jane Eyre. So
nice. I'm stoked. I can't wait. I should have had you autograph it for me. God damn it! All right. Oh,
special limited edition. So we'll talk about, since now Brett has gotten to see this magnificent beauty in its full form. I always forget how the camera works. Let's talk about SIG and stuff like that. You know, we kind of talked about it before. but I think we can go a little more in depth today. Yeah. So, Brett, what were your impressions when you pulled this high quality $800 pistol out of the box?
Yeah, I was definitely pretty blown away. I've had some SIG quality control issues in the past, but this was kind of like all of them happening all at once to one gun, and it makes you realize how dangerous poor quality control can be. Because it's like, okay, you know, your optic mount is out of spec. Okay, the finish sucks, all this, but when it all comes together in a device that is, you know, potentially deadly and one that your life might depend on, when all that comes together to just make a crap model, especially at like an $800 price point, man, is just it's crazy, and lose a lot of faith in the company that something like that would leave the door. And also looking at the comments of my video, it's about 50-50 right now. 50% of people saying I have an X macro and I've had no issues like this, and 50% of people saying like, yep, I experienced all this with my X macro. And it's like, okay, I would understand one lemon per every, you know, 100,000, 200,000 guns, but it's like one lemon every other gun. Yikes.
I mean, so to be fair, I'm sure the people that comment are like passionate one way or another, like they had a really bad experience, or you know, they had a very good experience with someone in the closet at SIG. So one way or another, you know, they have some emotional investment there.
Right. And
but
there are also
jokes
people...
aside, it's a lot, like my comments were a lot more divisive. Like a lot of people were like, oh, you must have done this on purpose for clout or something like that. So I definitely had, I think you've gotten better comments, and maybe that's just because you have more of a subscriber base coming in, while I just had more of people like finding the video.
And I was also less combative too. I mean, obviously you spent $800 and $60 per mag on this gun, so you were pissed. You just sent me this gun, and I just, you know, I reviewed the example. I didn't have any monetary investment into it, so I was able to come at it from like a less emotional place, a more fair and balanced, like
More
here's
objective.
what's good, here's what's bad. Because if I would have spent, you know, invested over $1,000 in this whole setup, man, I would have been raging.
Yeah.
Well, and the other thing is as well, Jesus, I'd made like
nice.
I'd made 3 videos prior.
hell?
My first video was all positive. It was a first impressions video being like, hey, I just got this gun. I put like 200 rounds through it. I like it. Right. Then those are and I'm going to carry it now and see how it is. And mostly positive things, although some people, of course, still didn't like that I said positive things about the macro.
Yeah.
Of course. And then, lo and behold, I start having rust issues and finish issues on the magazines like this. And so I made a follow-up video saying, here are the issues. And people got very displeased that I was starting to have issues with it. And you're not maintaining it, all this stuff. I'm like, no, bro, I've had this for like a couple months. Like 2-3 months. I've been maintaining it. It's not maintaining itself. And then I make another third video. I'm like, my last video, I'm going to get rid of this thing. This is it. And then the same bullshit again. And then when I take it apart to clean it, I show you guys the problems. And then Pete basically bullied me into making another video, which I guess.
I was not letting you not make it. He's all right for the viewing audience or the listening audience. This man sends me, he takes his FCU out of the, you know, SIG, which obviously we all know the new Striker Fire SIGs you can do with, and it's covered in rust completely. I'm talking about the fire control unit. That's the firearm. The whole thing, the whole reason of buying these macros on the 365s and 320s is because you can take the FCU out. You could do whatever you want. You can, like, you know, stipple the hell out of the frame. If it gets messed up, okay, fine. Another $60. You're not out an entire lower, essentially, like a Glock. All right. But the man pulls an FCU out that's completely covered in rust. And it was the worst thing I've ever seen. Not to mention the finish on his gun, not to mention the finish on his mags, not to mention that there are so many other guns out there, right, that you can buy that are not hype beast guns right now, that are way less expensive, that won't get a speck of rust on them. And I'm not saying that it's not possible, right, to get a speck of rust on a Glock or whatever. But my God, what did you have, like a Turkish gun, Brett?
Yep, the Stoeger STR9 doesn't even cost $300, and it had a better black nitride finish on it, and the sights had a better finish on it than this $800 SIG. So
right, so for me, right, I'm an avid gun consumer. I'm always buying something all the time, and so for me, like, I'm always plotting my next guns. Although right now I'm kind of tapped out. I'm like, I'm done, but I'm a Glock guy, right? I'm definitely, if you want to call me a fanboy, that's fine. It just fits my hand well, and I shoot them really, really well. But I also have a SIG. I have a Mark 25 that I absolutely love. It's my home defense weapon. It's a beautiful gun. I was so close in the like mid-year last year to starting to kind of phase out my Glocks for SIG, because I'm like, these guys are pushing the envelope. The FCU thing is cool. The grip modules are cool. All that, right? And then, the 320 had the drop safe issue in the beginning. Okay, fine. They fixed that. And then now there's this new case with over 400 plaintiffs, and I owned a 320, and I was pointing that thing at my genitals every single day. So I decided to sell that promptly, right? And now this with the 365 plus, with his macro, plus that 50% of your viewers, Brett, are having issues. Plus, there are multiple videos now on YouTube from different content creators that you see them firing a 365, pinning the FCU, pinning the trigger back in the FCU, shaking the gun, and the gun will fire again. That's it, man. That's it. I mean, how many chances do you need? The rust issue is bad enough, but let's say that's not a problem, but you're pointing the thing at your genitalia, or let's say you're pointing it down your leg. Who cares? It could still kill you, right?
I mean, even then, even if you don't die, it's still not a fun experience. And I will say, I feel like the FCU is like overcomplicated, and that's the other thing. Everyone forgets about Glocks. Like, I look at this thing and I'm like, how the fuck does this work? Like, I feel like sometimes shit pops out of it and I have to like pop it back in. Yeah. And it just looks so complicated versus like a Glock. I won't show it on video, YouTube, so you don't have an aneurysm. But like this thing is so simple, right? It's so simple to take apart, to maintain, to do whatever you need to do to it. And versus this thing that's like a complex, like engineering marvel, it seems. And as cool as it is that I can swap it out between stuff.
Like, credit where credit is due. We have to remember that Steyr sued SIG because they stole that fire control unit, the modularity of that from Steyr, and they ended up settling. So just let's be aware that Steyr came up with it, SIG stole it, and then they settled on it. So I don't know. Full credit can go to SIG.
Well, because also Beretta has their APX, which has a modular fire control unit, and I don't think they got sued for it or anything.
I think it was probably different enough. It's like, obviously patent law is not my expertise, but
I got to be real with you both. If Glock kept their simplicity in the fire control unit, right, and was able to have modularity there, that would be it for me. I'd be like,
that's
my
the
God.
Z9, right? But that has its own issues,
exactly,
including its cost and the grip modules. I don't like any of them. I felt them all, and they all feel weird. Like, they have weird like bumps and ridges along the side. Like a Glock is nice and flat, and it's like all fucking weird. I just don't like the OZ9.
Yeah,
and they're just like, they're insanely expensive.
I mean, bottom line is, I'm not buying these strikers. No way. From SIG, I'm done with that. Like, and that doesn't mean I'm not going to buy SIG products. That doesn't mean I hate SIG. I have a SIG clock on my wall right now. I do love my fucking Mark 25, but no way am I buying that. No way am I buying that, man. They gotta. Like I always say, if there's a fraction of a percentage of a chance of you shooting something off of your body with a gun, then is it worth carrying? And my answer is no.
And in defense of SIG and like SIG people, there are hundreds of thousands of SIG P320s out there that nobody has experienced an issue with. But what I always remind people is the vast majority of gun owners will buy like a SIG P320, maybe shoot it once, and then put it in a nightstand. So how many are actually out there that have seen enough rounds, that are enough use to have had a problem?
Right.
How many are just ticking time bombs sitting in nightstands? So,
like, something interesting I've seen is this dichotomy. Some comments are like, "Oh, I use my SIG all the time," but then I can see when people have commented on other videos on my channel, and one of those same people commented on my video on the exploding ammo, which is blown up recently. Ha ha ha. And it's that person's like, oh, you could have just waited like a year to like buy cheaper ammo.
Yeah.
So
right.
All the time, or which one is it, buddy? And that's the thing, is I think people also think that like, oh, I just shot 50 rounds really fast with my guns. That's like super a super test. I'm like, no, like, and also they're just shooting the gun, like, and nothing against people who, let's say, do like burn downs like Sage Dynamics. That only tests so much. right? Yes, it will test the gun being shot, but there's other wear to a firearm than just the gun going off, right? Like the wear to the frame, right? Will the frame crack? Will it degrade? Will it become all slimy or something like some of the older gen Glocks did, right? They would get really slimy if you like carried them for a long period of time. That was a big complaint people had. So I think people often forget that there's more to using your handgun than just shooting it. And a lot of these problems, like the rust didn't come from shooting the gun, right? The magazines didn't wear out from being shot, right? Because this is the magazine I shot like never. I mean, maybe you shot it now more that when I sent these to you. But before I stopped carrying it, this magazine with the non-colored base paint never shot it. I had these magazines that I shot a bunch, and so I would paint my training base pads of all my training mags. This is in better condition. So it's not even the wear of being inserted and reinserted and all that stuff. It's just from the fact that it is a poor quality finish and just sweat, humidity, what have you, wears it down. And, you know, of course you could say, oh, well, Glocks have plastic magazines, so you don't have to worry about it. Well, then, yeah, I don't have to worry about it. So,
yeah. I mean, listen, and, you know, I don't give a shit if a fanboy somewhere on the Glock, this HK, the SIG, I don't care about fanboyism, right? Like if this is a life-saving or life-taking tool, right? That's a pretty hefty responsibility. You know what I mean? And I don't want there to be a possibility of something going wrong. That's not to say that, oh, Glocks haven't blown up or had issues in the past, right? We all know that every gun company out there has had a hiccup here or there, right? It's the way that SIG has handled this as well. I mean, for me, like total silence. I mean, they handled the 320 issue with the drop safe because people were basically using them like hand grenades in the military. I'm just joking, right? Okay, they weren't. But, you know, they handled that pretty well. But this stuff, nothing. You're not going to say a word about rust issues, finish issues, fire control issues.
And I mean, it's like the drop safe thing. I don't know. Like that should have been a recall, in my opinion, because, you know, they did state, yeah, the gun is drop safe, and it's not drop safe. And they're like, well, yeah, but you know, it's drop safe if you don't abuse it by, you know, like dropping it. And it's a voluntary. It's like if you feel like it, send it in. But it's not a recall. Oof. And because of that, you know, there are 320s in nightstands without
people who don't pay attention, who don't know anything, who they went to the gun store, especially during. I don't remember when the recall was. I think it was before COVID.
It was before.
But it's totally possible someone bought a gun secondhand, or someone bought a gun from a gun store that doesn't really care. Who knows? And then they don't care. There's some, you know, liberal that doesn't know crap about guns, isn't part of any gun forums or anything. And so they have their 320 and it's not drop safe. And one day it's going to fall off their nightstand or something. And bam, there goes their dong. So,
well, that's their problem.
And this is something
you got to train with the stuff. You just have to get out there.
But even this, right? Think about this. So I own a bunch of different guns. Like I own this Glock here, and I own tons of other Glocks that are configured very similarly. So I might only train with one Glock for like a month, right? I don't need to shoot all my guns. But I'm not concerned, oh, I need to test all my Glocks and put like 2 million rounds to them to make sure that they function. Let me see if I can get my thing to focus. Make sure they function correctly, right? Yeah. I'm pretty confident if I take a Glock out of the box and I had to use it to defend myself, it functioned.
Just track record.
But a SIG now, I'm like, no, I'd want to put like a couple thousand rounds through it. Like, let's say you're in a position where you have to use a SIG for one reason or another, job, whatever. I would put several thousand rounds to this thing and then test every little safety and mechanism within it before trusting it for duty, concealed carry, whatever. Right. And that's the thing. As a private citizen, there's the luxury of you can carry whatever you want. But imagine if you're in law enforcement, military, security, whatever. And like, here you go. Here's your 320. This thing's from 2016. We bought it then, so here you go. Right?
Yeah. I mean, at least the military has the manual safety.
Yes.
Right?
And I did learn recently that the manual safety does more than block the trigger. I guess it blocks the striker as well. So those are actually safe. So if you want a 320, you get a manual safety version. You should be good. I don't know. But from what I've seen engineering wise, it looks like it's better.
Yeah. But I mean, I don't know, man. I don't know. I just feel so put off by this. As a guy, I've had HKs. I've had I have obviously Glocks, SIGs. I just feel off put. And by the way, I did notice that with the FCU as well. Like I know every single part in my fire control unit in a Glock by name almost. You know, like I can tell you what each little piece is. But that thing was starting to get into, not quite, but getting into HK territory. And it doesn't have little wires and stuff, but it was almost there, like with the little springs and everything in there.
Yep.
It was not an easy, when I pulled it out, I was like, oh yeah, this will just be a gun that I like basically brush clean and like, hope it doesn't jam up on me.
And brush cleaning is not enough for this guy. That's the thing. It's like, and some people are like, oh, you need to do this. You need every day, you need to take it apart. You need to oil every last little bit and wipe it down with this special rag. I'm like, first of all, why am I buying like a $90 cleaning cloth, whatever crap they want me to buy? And two, it's like, why? Why do I have to clean this every time? Yeah. This doesn't get cleaned. I don't remember the last time I cleaned this gun.
And I think that's kind of the ultimate argument, right? It's like someone's like, oh, you need to clean it, wipe it down, all that kind of stuff. And then you like hold up another gun. And you're like, okay, well, I've been carrying this for 5 years and never once had to do that with this. So why is this okay and this one's not? And especially if it's the same gun, like in my case, in my X macro video, I have that XL that I carried for 2 years. And I'm like, look, this thing's perfect. Look at this macro. I carried it for 1 day and it started to get rust. It's like,
Yep.
Well, they don't make every single gun that's made is a gun that's made in some level of compromise. So meaning like, okay, I like the Glock because I could use it for 5 years and whatever. And never clean it, right? All these times and at the range and never clean it. Okay, but it doesn't fit my hand perfect, but I've learned to use it, whatever, right? Okay, if this guy who made that comment, Midas, is saying, oh well, it's a great like the gun fits perfectly in your hand, which it does. The macros and excellent ergos. I think the best ergos on the market. I like the X-ray sights that come with it. Personally, I find them to be bright, easy to pick up. I like the
little orange and brown for my taste, but
I mean, like,
right, the rust, but right. But if the compromise is that you have to, like, wipe the thing down every single day or else it'll rust. I don't have time, dude. I'm a father. I don't have time for this shit. You know what I'm saying? And like, I just want to take my EDC off at the end of the day, like, and throw it in my safe and call it a day, because it's been annoying me carrying it for 8 hours, so
it shouldn't be a chore to EDC. Like, it should be like, this is my tool and I don't think about it and it's just there if I need it. Right. That's
a good segue.
I don't do a bunch of like shit to my phone every day to make sure it functions. It's just like, I charge it. That's all I got to do. I got to charge it. Right. But I just plug it in, or now with like the QI chargers, I just put it on the charger at the end of the night and that's it. That's all I have to do. Right. And normally with all my other guns that I'd carry, I just put it in my storage area at the end of every night next to my bed. And that's it. Right. I don't have to think about it. I don't have to do anything. Only when I'd shoot it would I actually care about cleaning it. And some Glocks, like this guy, which is mostly a training Glock, never gets cleaned, no issues.
See, that's why I only use O-lights, because you just charge them. I just charge my phone, charge my O-light, no other lights.
And then your house burns down.
Yep.
And so I do want to say something interesting, and then we'll go into the main topic today, which is EDC. So, and I'm working with them to make an update video. Zinc Point Manufacturing, who is the topic of my exploding ammo video, which recently got a lot of traction, reached out to me. And they wanted to speak with me. I spoke with them on the phone. I'm not going to disclose anything yet until we get to like the point of like where I'm actually making the full video and everything. But it was nice to speak with them, that they wanted to reach out and, kind of show that maybe they've changed, they've improved, stuff like that. And I'll be speaking with them further and doing an actual update video and see what they say. But it's interesting that they reached out to me and contacted me, and they're being very cordial, very nice, versus SIG, who I guarantee you, right? Because from what I've heard talking to multiple individuals saying, like, my video, even if it's on smaller forums more prominent people, my video has been on, right? And multiple forums, multiple SIG forum stuff, I guarantee you SIG's seen it and they don't care. Yeah. And I'm not being like, SIG, you gotta notice me, SIG, please notice me. No. All I'm saying is, if I owned a company and I saw someone have these issues, I would reach out to them, to find out what are these issues. Like, can you at least, tell me how this happened? Like, I broke an alien gear holster, my duty holster, and I have a video coming out on that soon. They reached out to me because I made a post about it, and they're like, hey, can we send you a replacement, and can you tell us what happened so we don't have this problem happen to our product in the future?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And that's the sign of a good company, right? Especially if they have a good social media team, which I'm sure SIG has one.
Oh,
so
I don't. Yeah, they're called GBRS Group and Mike Glover. I mean, but no, listen, they just don't give a shit because and look, the
they
power
contracts.
Not only that, but like they are gonna what, pay attention to you, and then they'll give credence, that means, to something that you're experiencing, right? So if they just ignore you and let your video go into the dustbins of history, which it's not, because you know, we're consumers, we're talking, we're out here, we're chatting, you know, like, I hate this attitude that perhaps the consumers aren't as important because we have military contracts or something like that. Well, you know what, dude, we're out here still. We're a significant portion of the people who are spending millions and billions of dollars on guns.
They're selling their guns to the military
Collectively.
for like $50 or whatever.
Yeah.
So
I mean, but here's the truth. Here's why SIG doesn't care. SIG doesn't care for the same reason that Glock wouldn't care, for the same, like, you know, if they saw the video, you reach out, obviously, like Glock took care of you on the exploding gun, but
Right.
it's like the same reason that Glock wouldn't reach out to you after seeing, you know, a video that you had a problem with the Glock, same reason that HK wouldn't. And it's just because they are so big, they don't need you, and they don't need the 80,000 people that are going to watch your video. That's how big they are. They're too big to fail, and because of that, you're just an ant to them. And that's just the way it is.
And literally too big to fail. I mean, if you want to go in that discussion, SIG is, I think SIG was one of the manufacturers that was bailed out at one point years ago. I could be wrong, but there were several gun manufacturers that were. But that's a whole other discussion.
I mean, all I know is that dudes, it's 2023. Like, my gun shouldn't be shooting me in the dick on its own in a holster, unmolested. Ha ha ha. And you know, it should also not be rusting like, you know, a raw piece of iron left out in the rain. And I've never seen pitting and rusting like this on a gun that anyone's had for 6 months. I'm talking never. Was it 6 months about now total?
About, right? I think August.
Yeah. So. Yeah. So let's say even 5 months or whatever, right? Or let's say if it was 7 months or a year.
February now, so 6 months.
Dude, I've never seen any. And I know you live in a humid environment, and I kind of like, your videos both speak for themselves, so it's like beating a dead horse. But I mean, it's so easy to discuss this because I can't understand why someone would be freaked out by you being freaked out by a gun that's a rust bucket. Like, if I handed you an old timey revolver that had pitting and rust on it, you'd be like, look at that old piece of shit, right? But now this, because it's a SIG and they've made a lot of progress in like fire control units and perfect grip and like ergonomics, and you know, I heard some of the HK guys moved over to SIG, and that's who like upped their game, like in the X series and everything. Like those are the guys who like went into these crazy ergos where they're able to cram 17 rounds into that little, you know, macro magazine and everything like that. That's some hearsay from behind the scenes that I've heard in the industry. And for those who don't know, I do work in a gun shop now and again, and probably will open up one of my own. But the point is, I don't want to. If I handed you a rusty old revolver, would you want to carry it? No, it's the same thing as a SIG. It doesn't make a difference. It's a tool. It's a gun. It shouldn't be rusting. Period. All right. Yes. And anyone who's defending that shit they're fucking fanboy.
And it's so easy to beat this dead horse because the horse is dead. So it's like, it's such an easy topic. But let's move on a little bit. Let's talk about
yeah, for sure, man. For sure.
EDC.
Sorry. Ooh.
So Brett, you definitely have a lot of videos on that on your channel. So I'll defer to you. You've probably been carrying longer than anyone here.
So I've been legally carrying for 10 years, so a decade. And yeah, quite the EDC journey, where basically I started ultra micro with like a Beretta Jetfire 25 ACP when I could not get made no matter what. And it's like, you know, you're freaking out and you're like, okay, well, I can have this thing decocked so it won't go off, you know, kind of when you're nervous when you're first starting out. And then moving up to, you know, like a SIG P938. And then that's when all the crazy guns started coming out, like the Glock 43 and the SIG P365, the Smith & Wesson Shield. Moved up to that category and then moved up to a Glock 19. And now I just carry full-size guns all the time.
Wow. Yeah, I got to ask you that. Like, I know you're a slim build kind of dude. Are you tall?
Not really. No, I'm like 5'8". So
okay. All right. So, was it just for you to come to that? I mean, obviously, like for me, I have very big hands, and I'm planning on EDCing my Glock 45, right? Which is, for those who are uninitiated, it has a 17 size frame, so a full size frame on a compact. Yeah, there you go, right there, Perfect. So, oh my God, that's so funny. So, like, how did you come to that? Was it just an advancement in your holster choice or and body placement? Like, was it like that evolution that brought you to that place?
Yeah, so when I started carrying, it was before appendix was super popular. It's like everybody just carried, behind the hip. It's one of those things where it's like, oh yeah, you especially like God, what's the competition where you shoot like a concealed carry firearm
IPSC.
and like yeah, and then it has to be behind the hip,
Or is
for
it IPSC? IDPA.
yeah, IDPA or something like that, where usually back then it was like all behind the hip, and that's how. So you're exposed to that in the competitive world, and you're exposed to that on like the outdoor channel, like the best defense and stuff like that. So you kind of just carry where everybody else carries. So one, it was moving a position up to appendix. Two, it was upgrading a belt to a much stiffer belt. And number three, it was finding a holster that concealed well. With those three things, sugar, spice, and everything nice, that's when you can add the extra ingredient, chemical X, and conceal a full-size gun, even as a smaller dude.
And you're concealing with the X300 on there.
Yeah, so this is what I carry every single day.
Wow, dude. That's no joke.
Yep, X300 acro, and obviously full-size grip. So
yeah, because I don't know, Midas, are you cool with me jumping in on this? Because I'm the least experienced in EDCing. But I mean, okay, so my experience is to this level is I carry at home all the time, but that's usually Glock 43 in what's known as the condom holster by SOB Tactical. It's like a very stiff leather holster. It's like super thin. And like I'm talking like you don't even know it's there. So it's super comfortable. I can rock it with my joggers. You know what I mean? Like I'm, just chilling around the house with it. But then in my state of New York, I was like almost, they had a preference, not illegally bound, but they had a preference for us to carry to and from the range and to and from the gun store if you needed any work done on your pistol, right? So I carried tons to and from the range and because I'm always in a gun store and I'm always in a at a range. So that was great. And I evolved from like, thinner, crappier Kydex. And yes, I played with 4 o'clock because it was so much easier, I thought, to drive with that 4 o'clock position than the appendix, right? And then now I'm working in a gun shop part-time, and I EDC every day, and that's where I needed that stiffer belt. Where I totally agree. So I do rock the core essentials on those days. So any days that I'm trying to rock like the 19, or the G45 or anything like that, I'm working it with that. I haven't gotten to the point where I could work with the X300 yet. It's pressing into my pelvic bone. Yeah. I guess. Right. So it really does bother me, but I'm hoping that Tier 1 Concealed's new Axis Elite holster is gonna be the shiz. Yeah, that is beautiful.
Yeah. And as far as it like pressing into your pubic bone, it's like two things. One, clip height. So moving the clips down so the gun rides higher definitely helps. And number two, running it maybe a little bit off to the side so that the X300 kind of goes in between your leg, like the crease.
Yeah, that crease, right?
Yeah, that's
for sure.
That's kind of the best.
So one thing, and I think it was you, Pete, that turned me onto this, is buying those little heel extenders that you put in a shoe to look taller, and then you just cover it in Velcro and cover the back of the holster in Velcro. And this honestly worked because for me, the one thing, I'd never had comfort issues with an appendix holster before, but the macro sidecar would dig because it was so short.
Yeah,
it would like this part right here was digging into like right above like my pubic region, I guess, without getting too graphic. And so Pete sent me a video of some guy making one out of this, and I used this and this like fixed it. So honestly, if anyone's out there and like it's uncomfortable and they don't want to buy one of those like wedge packs or whatever, and they want something simple, this actually works pretty well.
Yeah, I'm gonna see if I can find it on Amazon.
On Amazon.
Yeah. I'm gonna see if I could just find that on Amazon and throw it up for you guys.
As far as my EDC is, like yesterday, just for shits and giggles, I carried the Hellcat again. And this is the thing, it's not bad. Like it's and beware, I'm about to pull out a grenade. I have an O-light on here because when I got the Hellcat, it was the only light holster combo that existed for this thing. So I got an O-light because I wanted a light. and I was like, let me try no light and let me see what it's like. And this honestly hasn't exploded yet, so we'll see. But what I like about the Hellcat is it just feels like a worse Glock, to be honest, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. Like the trigger feels like a Glock, but like a worse Glock trigger. The grip is a little bit too slim, so I can't really fit my support hand in there fully. I kind of have to like fight to get that support hand space. I have a video on the Hellcat if you're interested. I'm not a huge fan of it. It's just kind of meh. But I carry this from time to time, just literally for shits and giggles. Like, fuck it, I'll carry this. Normally, I've been carrying a lot right now with this thing, which is the Tight Shoots Voyager. And it carries my Glock 19 in here, no problem, with a TLR7. And it's really comfortable. At first, you get weird looks from people because you wear a fanny pack. But when you get over that and realize, like, who gives a shit, I'll wear what I want. This is so nice because it's so comfortable. It's great for the gym. It's great for going for a run, rock climbing, whatever it is you do. This thing's fantastic. I'll have a video coming in on this soon as well. And it's super comfy. And also,
how does the draw work on that?
So you have like a pull tab here. Mm-hmm. You pull that with one hand, and the other hand you just come in, and you literally just pull it out.
Okay.
So it has this magnetic system on it, and it's like a one size fits all. It's very interesting. So there's magnets here, right?
Oh, okay.
And one side goes on this side of the gun, one side goes on the other side, and fully encases the trigger guard and everything, no problem. And there's just magnets on both sides, and on this side there's hook Velcro, and it's like it's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
And I've had no issues with it. It's super nice. And I've also put this in like Vertex bags and stuff where you can put like a Velcro holster.
Nice.
This holds everything in super well. So, and you can buy the Mars separately on the
site,
on the Tight Shoot site. It's
tightshoots.com.
Yes. You can buy this separately if you want, or you can buy just this if you have your own holster system you want to put in here. But I'd recommend theirs. It works super well. It holds it up without being like stiff and uncomfortable. And it just looks like a fanny pack, so you don't look like you're carrying a gun. So if you're somewhere where you want to be extra discreet, or you're working somewhere where you want to look like the guy who doesn't have a gun, no one expects the dude with the gun, especially if they have like some goofier colors or some fancier colors you can get. No one thinks that guy has a gun. And for me, it's just a comfort thing. I'm waiting for my tier 1 to show up. It finally shipped. Should be coming in a couple days. But until then, I've just been carrying with the Tight Shoots. And I got to say, if you want to carry with a fanny pack, it's the way to go.
Yeah. I mean, I just ordered mine, and Bob from Tight Shoots happens to be like one of the nicest human beings on earth. So when you do talk to him, if you ever do, he'll answer all your questions. I haven't gotten mine yet, but I really I think I'm like most guys like us, like who are really into gear. I have so much shit just sitting around that I'm not using, right? Like, think about, you have a holster box. I know you do. I know you have a box of old holsters you're not using anymore. And like, I'm just so tired of that. So now whenever I buy anything new, I do like so much research, and I like, break out my ruler and like actually look at the measurements of it. And I'm like, so you got the Voyager there. I bought the Voyager XL because the Voyager XL will fit the G45, and I really want to try to EDC that. I have a 509 on it. I'll probably rock that X300 on it and everything like that. So yeah, like that could be like a battle belt gun or an EDC gun if you run it right. But I guess I'm most comfortable with my 19. The thing is, right, like I have to do stuff to my 19s to get them to be super comfortable. Like I like to have a nice deep undercut. Like a single undercut is fine for me, for my 19 to work with my hand size. Exactly. Like just like that, Midas. And then the stippling and stuff, I do prefer it on a 19. That gun just seems to feel like it wants to get away from me. Now my 43X, on the other hand, MOS, doesn't feel like it's getting away from me. I don't know why. Maybe because I could swallow the whole gun with my two hands, right? But if I was giving out advice, I would say get the gun that fits your hand, carry the gun that fits your hand the best, and then dress around it, right? Like, I mean, and that's my limited advice. I've only been carrying for like a year like this. But I mean, what would you say, Brett? Like, like in your experience?
Yeah. My experience as far as like carrying a firearm would be, before you buy one, watch a bunch of reputable people talking about it on YouTube.
Like Control the Gun or Nightwood Guns.
Yep. And honestly, for beginners, one of the best places to go is the YouTube channel Armed and Styled. The girl that runs that channel has just really gone in depth with her concealed carry journey, and she is so chill and like empathetic. It's a great place to start if you're coming to concealed carry with, taking emotions with you, like, fear of the unknown. It's like, oh, is this gun gonna go off? That's like a great resource for newbies,
especially for women as well.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the thing.
Is she that like blonde, kind of like a blonde? Yeah. I've seen this channel.
That's the thing as well. Is there, when it comes to men and women, obviously there's hand size stuff, but the main thing is women dress differently, right? And women want, care more about style. I'm sure there's guys who care about style. I don't care too much. I just wear like a shirt and some pants and that's it. And maybe a stupid hat. So I'm not too concerned, but people who are concerned about style, especially women who like to wear tighter fitting clothing or dresses or stuff like that, like most guys don't have to worry about that. So, it is a good thing. Also on Instagram, I think it's freedom.concealed. If you check out her account, I think she's based in like Utah, and she does a lot of like women's carrying. So if you're a female watching this somehow, well,
and it's like for dudes, like I think for guys, the best advice is check your ego, just leave it behind, because there are so many negligent things that I've seen over the years. Just because, guys will come at it like, I'm a dude, this is a gun. It's like, this is a representation of my ego. I know what I'm doing, when in actuality, you don't. So I would just say like gather knowledge and information before you get started. And that way you can, make good choices on gear and especially on practicing safe and effective concealed carry.
Yeah. And something I just want to add to that, like as a jiu-jitsu guy, I've been in one of the most, I guess it's a real gladiator academy. Like I'm on the mats with like, George St. Pierre and other pro fighters have like always come through our academy. I was there I've taken a break since I got injured, hurt my shoulder. I'm a brown belt under Renzo Gracie. Like that is a place where your ego, you cannot hide, right? Like, but there's no barrier to entry except for the purchase of a firearm for people. And then all of a sudden they become John Rambo, who can make eats things that make a billy goat puke. You know what I mean? Like the attitude is like they're a Green Beret the second they get a Glock in their hand. But, like in jiu-jitsu, for example, right? Like, every day you're eating a slice of humbled pie. So I've been there for a long time, 12 years maybe. And there are going to be days where even a white belt, you know what I mean? Like maybe he's got some wrestling background or she, right? And they're just beating you up and you're like, oh my God, where did this person come from? Maybe they're a Sambo person, right? Like, so there is no barrier to entry at all with the gun world. So approach it with a little, I agree with you, Brett. You approach it with a little bit of humility and respect, right? Like, and I think it's a great idea recommending Armed and Styled, because, that's a female channel. She's not going to come at you with like, some GBRS group muscle shit, you know what I mean? Yeah. And all that. Although I will say that at the end of the day, the journey is going to be your own. Like, you're gonna my first pistol I ever bought was a Glock 21 because they don't make a 46, you know what I mean, right? Like it'll stop an elephant, whatever, you know what I'm saying. And so, but like, so now it's like you learn so much along the way, and if you treat it like a martial art, like shooting, right? Like if you have that like sort of dojo respect where like, you look around the mats and you're like, okay, man, like I'm gonna roll with this person. There's a potential to hurt someone. Like same thing with the gun. You know what I mean? Like you have to have that respect and a systematic approach to running it, I think, to get better.
Well, and
push the limits.
Garantham released an interview with Christian Craighead, Obi-Wan Nairobi, and he said, like if you carry a gun every day, you should be carrying with the anticipation you might shoot someone that day, essentially. And that's entirely right. I think people forget that, whether law enforcement, military, especially concealed carriers, it's like, why are we carrying this? It doesn't magically make us safer. It doesn't magically make the danger go away. Right. It's, if we know how to use it properly, we might make it out alive. It's not a guarantee. And, bad things can happen because of it. It's ultimately like, are you prepared to take a life, to defend your family, whatever? And I think so many people are like, oh, I just have the gun just in case. And, if something really bad is going down, I'll just leave. And it's like, So it's like, it's just there. I don't train a whole lot because I'll just leave if
Yeah.
it gets bad. And I see that all the time from him. I'm like, what if you can't?
Well,
Right?
just a real life example of that. What's his name? The guy in Indiana at the mall that killed the mass shooter.
Eli Dickens.
Yeah, Eli Dicken. So here's the deal. Everybody holds up Eli Dicken as here's a guy who was concealed carrying, who looked around. He was the guy. He stepped up to the plate and he took care of business. And we celebrate that. What people don't know, because I'm assuming the police department probably suppressed it a little bit because they didn't want to overshadow the amazing thing that happened with Eli Dicken. One of the first guys that was clapped in that mass shooting, they found a concealed carry firearm on him.
Oh.
So that is a guy that it happened so fast he couldn't react. Maybe he was, like you were saying, not one of those people who's like, I might have to use this today. Maybe it's a just in case. And because of that, when it was the moment, maybe it just didn't click.
Yeah.
Maybe he didn't have a fast draw. Like all we know is that they found a concealed carry firearm on one of the first couple of guys that ran into the mass shooter.
Well, here in New York, just yesterday, an off-duty cop who was carrying got clapped, shot in the head by some scumbag criminal robber in Brooklyn. And, you know, I think if you refer to, you know, Midas's video on like why criminals are better than you. What was that one title?
Why bad guys are faster than you.
Why bad guys are faster than you, right? Like they're working in a very proactive manner. You're working typically in these scenarios in a reactive manner. I mean, you could have your antenna tuned in, you know, and like be observing, not be looking down at your phone, right? You know, kind of like questioning why someone is doing something, positioning yourself in a certain seating arrangement in the restaurant, and so on and so forth, and all the things that you know you hear that are typical, right? But a dude, you could be sitting in that part of the restaurant and somebody can come in through the kitchen and just shoot you right in the back of the head. You put yourself in the back where you're looking at the front, and someone could just shoot you right in the back of the head. And before you know it, your brains are splattered all over the table and you're done. Yeah. So, you know, sometimes it's the luck of the draw too. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah. Like a lot of people like forget because we don't live in a country where it happens a lot, but like bombings, right? What are you going to do? Shoot the bomb, right? Shoot the suicide bomber, and then it goes off anyways. So it's
right.
I feel like often people just don't understand what this is. It's just a tool in your arsenal. It is not the tool. It is a tool. And you know, some people carry other things, medical, pepper spray. I don't carry pepper spray. That's one thing I'm not a huge proponent of. Just okay, this is my thing, right? And this is from personal experience. If you pepper spray someone, it might just mean now I'm fighting someone covered in pepper spray and it's going to get over me.
Some people are just immune to it. Some people just don't even react.
Some people are legitimately immune to it. And depending on the condition, right? And this is one of my earliest videos about gun stuff. My earliest video is called The Hypocrisy of Concealed Carry. Doesn't have a whole lot of views or anything. Never got any traction. But my whole thing was you have someone who carries like some tiny pocket pistol or whatever. And it's like, are you effective with that? Will 6 rounds be enough for you? Right? Because there's that 3 rounds, 7 yards, 3 seconds or whatever bull crap.
Yep.
And like, I think I sent you guys this comment where in my video, here, let me pull it up because I've got it right here. This comment right here, right? So he's talking about, because it was about the slow, smooth, fast video. And a lot of people don't like that I said that's bull crap because it is. But then he's saying some stuff and it's like, okay. And I think Brett said it the best in the group chat. Like, okay, it looks like he just disagrees and whatever. And then you get to the second part. So for EDC, I believe everything goes out the window as long as you get your shots on target and stop the threat. Again, though, hopefully you've trained enough and slow down that your technique is proper, that 1 shot to the head is enough to eliminate the threat compared to 4 shots to the head at 7 yards. Young shooters want to be going in with guns blazing like the movies, and most of them not yet comprehended the true meaning of being efficient, blah, blah, blah. But it's like, he's literally, if EDC, everything goes out the window. Like, don't even worry about it. It's going to be close ranges and all this stuff. And it's like that I'm like, Jesus Christ. Like, oh.
Yeah.
And
it's scary, honestly. The biggest threat to me I see, honestly, in a situation where there's an active shooter, mass shooter, whatever, a bad guy, either I'll get clapped right away and there's nothing I can do.
Yeah.
Or I'll take out the bad guy and some fucking retard with his XD is going to come up and fucking start shooting at me because he has no like cognizance of what's going on, doesn't know how to PID, and I'm going to start getting shot at, and either I'm going to get clapped or I'm going to have to clap him to save my life. And now it's a whole other problem I have to deal with. Right, where I just killed someone technically legally, but morally questionable because of the situation. So you're not just, it's not just about you when you carry your gun. It's about everyone else around you. Because if you're going to pull this thing out, you're responsible for a whole lot. Like in that interview, like watching it, I'm like, I think it's one of the best things Grantham ever put out, because you have a lot of knowledge talking. Not that Grantham doesn't, but it's a lot better than those Demolition Ranch style videos.
Yeah, I mean, but like Craighead is literally a dude that did like Rainbow Six terrorist hunt on realistic difficulty in real life.
Right.
So,
Right.
Yes.
Right.
And so obviously, like, I'm not the type of person that's like, oh, because they were in the military, they know everything. But I'm like, yeah, this guy probably knows what he's talking about. Right. He may not be the best shooter, but when it comes to clapping people, that's who I would refer to.
Yep.
So
under stress, as well in a real world situation where you don't have
and also he had to coordinate with people who spoke like different languages and different units and stuff, and he coordinated everything and coordinated a rescue and all this stuff, right? And he violated laws or protocols or policies or whatever. He got himself in trouble doing it, but it's like it was about doing what's right. And that's the thing is, there's situations where I think people are so concerned about themselves, and that's why they carry a gun. And I'm not trying to diss those people necessarily. I get it if you have families, children, stuff like that. But at the same time, I do have an issue with it, because I think people's approach then tends to be tainted, where it's like, oh, I don't really care what happens to these people. I'll just get out. And it's like, and this is the thing. It's not that I don't think you're lying, but I think in a real life situation, most people don't have that level of not animosity, but like determination to be like, fuck everyone else, I'm taking my family. I think some people might genuinely be like, I don't know, maybe I should do something, right? They'll have a moral dilemma. And when they're not prepared for that, that's how they'll die, because they second guess themselves. Because like, you know what? I have a gun, and there's people there's children being slaughtered right next to me. Yeah. Can I really look at my kids again and like talk to my wife ever again if I just ran out of here right now and let all those people die? And then that person who never prepared once in his life to deal with a major threat like that, other than like a mugger in an alley, he's now fighting something he did not prepare for, because he thought, I'll only worry about my family.
I will say one. I'm sorry to cut you off, Brad, but like I will say something. As a father of two, and like with a wife, let's say we go to the mall. Whenever I'm at the mall, I'm completely freaked out. Like because I cannot legally carry yet at the mall. Right, until my CCW comes through, which should be shortly, and then that will be that. Once the laws kind of shift a little bit here, but the point I'm trying to make is my first, just kind of like counter to your point a little bit, is that my first duty is to my family. I want to get them out of that situation alive. Right now, if I'm capable of stopping what's happening, I absolutely will. But I'm not going to engage necessarily. I think your best. I tell everybody, they're like, "Oh, what's the best martial art?" I've done multiple, right? Like, and I'm like, "Oh, it's track, high school track." They're like, "What do you mean?" I'm like, "Get the fuck out of there. Don't be in the fight to begin with if you can avoid it. If you can't, and the last line of defense is going to hands or going to your gun for because it's absolute life and death, and you must. Then fine." But when it comes to me being out with if I'm by myself, I'm Obi-Wan Nairobi. If I'm with my family, I'm going to get them to safety first, and then potentially stop a threat. It just depends on, because now I'm their protective detail. You know what I mean? That's who my concern is in those situations. And Brett, I think you have a family as well, right? I mean, I don't know if that rings true to you or not.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think for me, on one hand, I have a certain level of training and I have a certain proficiency and a certain skill set with a handgun. And, I think there are a couple sets of people, right? There are people who carry a firearm for their own protection, and that is a mugger. And I did a video called "How Many Rounds Do You Need for Self-Defense?" And the answer is the vast majority of the time, 0. The presence of a firearm will make the problem go away. So that's like the vast majority of defensive encounters are just the defensive display of a firearm. So those people are probably all going to be cool. The problem is when you run into that mass casualty event. And my advice for anybody there, especially people like us who have a proficiency to deal with someone who has a rifle at any kind of distance and is just clapping a mass amount of people and it's just chaos, is ask yourself if it's your fight. Because if you're in a mall and you hear gunshots on the other end of the mall, in my opinion, that's not your fight. It's like, just for whatever reason, the universe's plan did not place you there to save those people. Because if you interject yourself and you start running towards gunfire on the other end of the mall, and it's like a 5-minute run, then you're dealing with potential police response. And then all of a sudden you're dealing with cops potentially shooting you if you're holding a gun. Maybe another civilian is already responding, and that is more chaos. But if you're with your family, get them out and maybe help other people around you get to safety if you're by yourself. Be a leader, get them out. But if you're on the upper level of the mall, right above the food court, and you hear bang, bang, bang below you, and there's a guy with just a duffel bag and a vest and an AR just clapping people, and you look down and you turn around and run, that's your choice. I have no problem. It's not what I would do. I would say, this is my fight. I have an opportunity to stop this, and I would do it. So I would say, ask yourself, is this your fight? And if the answer is yes, then it's go time. If the answer is no, I wish this happened closer to me so I could do something, but it's just not going to happen. And don't interject yourself into chaos on
I agree.
Don't go towards that problem.
And so I wasn't saying you should. It's more of, I think people will try to, and they think they've made up their mind. And I think it's all about willpower either way and determination. If you don't have the determination, like, you need to be like, I am here for my family, and everyone else can go fuck themselves. Like, and that's the thing ultimately, because there's two parts to this. One, I'm a protector. I'm carrying the gun, to help people, like kind of like the John Lovell Warrior Poet Society thing, which love the guy, great dude. But also everyone else has the ability to be their own protector as well.
Exactly.
Right?
It's the whole Clint Eastwood in Unforgiven. It's like, you just shot an unarmed man. Well, he should have armed himself. And that's right. The thing. It's like, these people, they should arm themselves.
You have everyone has the opportunity to protect themselves, right? Yeah. And unless you're like a convicted felon or some bullshit, and that's a whole other discussion. But if you're an everyday person, you have the opportunity, right? Now, there's certain things where there's situations where the people don't have the opportunity, right? Like children and stuff like that. And I think there's
or non-permissive environments with metal detectors,
yes. And sometimes, there might be ways to get around those things. Maybe there's not, maybe it's a knife, maybe it's pepper spray,
LCP,
right? Something, right? Or maybe it's those like folding little phone things that have like 2 rounds of 380 or whatever. Whatever it is, whatever you can get in there, I would, I'm not advocating for anyone to be criminals, but I think ultimately those security guards there aren't to protect you. And most of the time they're not even armed. So what are they going to do if someone shows up with a rifle and starts clapping people? And that's the big thing, is you have to be prepared for whatever it is, even if you're in an environment where all you can have is a fixed blade or all you can have is your fists, right? Do you have a plan? Do you, know where the nearest armed individual is, if they have armed security, to how to get to them? And if they don't know how to use your gun, use their gun for them. Right.
And how good are you at throwing knives?
Not very good. I do have throwing knives, and I've carried them a couple times, and I'm like, this is ridiculous. I'm never gonna no.
Ninja stars.
Yes. Well, so in something, and I remember before you brought up James Yeager, I've taken one of his classes. And something that's interesting is like, and they brought this up. If you're somewhere where you can't carry a gun, look for the guy who has a gun. Look for the mall guard. Right. Or whatever. More than likely, they'll probably get clapped. Or they won't know how to use their gun, or they'll freeze up or something. So be like, just fucking take their gun and use it, right? In that moment. Because I would not be surprised if, and this is not to discredit anyone or anything, but either like the mall cop who's not paying attention, who's getting fat at the food court, even if he has a gun, doesn't even know how to use it, right? He took that one security guard class that's like a joke. Or, will he freeze up and try and hide when something goes down, like cops have, Parkland. So it's like, I would literally go and be like, give me your gun. I'm going to go kill this guy.
Or know how to defeat common holsters.
Yes. Also, know how to, here, right. Know how to use a retention holster. Right. But ultimately you gotta have, you have to think outside the box. Right. And so I'm sure I'm going to piss off everyone at tactical response. But I wouldn't really recommend to take their classes, to be honest. I think there's better classes out there, but they do one interesting thing at the end with the whole mindset thing. Have you guys ever taken a tactical response course?
I haven't.
No.
Okay. So at the end, there's this box they have you stand in. So you cannot leave this box. You have to shoot this target. You have to stop this threat, this target in front of you. And then they take your gun and any backup guns or anything you have. Now, my first reaction is I pulled out my knife. I actually threw it and hit the target and it stabbed the target, but no, you have to shoot it. I'm like, okay. And I thought for a second, and then I took the instructor's gun and shot it. And that's what they wanted to teach you, that you take the instructor's gun, right? You take the available gun. And for all the weird rangeisms that they teach, that is the one thing I truly agree. I think while mindset is overused and it becomes cliche, like you have to have the mindset to be in the fight crap. and it sounds cringy. It's true. You have
Yeah.
to be like, okay, if I don't have a gun, you have to be able to think like the bad guys. Like, okay, where can I get a gun and shoot someone right now if I need to? Right? Because I think too often concealed carriers get screwed because they try and be too good of a good guy.
Yep.
Right? You talk to people who have a pretty high KD, and they will tell you, yeah, you have to be ruthless. Like, this is not a fair fight. This is punching for the balls, like whatever it is you've got, you go for it, sort of thing, right? Like the biggest thing, if you talk to law enforcement instructors who teach active shooting training, the hardest thing to get cops to do is to shoot people in the back, right? Very hard. To me, I'll be like, no, fuck it. It's the threat, shoot him, right? I don't care. That's easier for me. They can't shoot back yet. But a lot of people, they are inherently good people, and there's a level of ruthlessness you need. And that's what I meant when I was talking about people leaving with just their family. There's an inherent level of ruthlessness you need to let other people die so your family can live, right?
Okay.
I'm not saying literally like shove someone in the way of the gunman or something. That's a little bit too far. But you might have to be like, nope, we're leaving, and maybe you can come back and do something. Maybe you can bring some other people with you. Maybe you can lay down covering fire or something. But like Brett said, it may not be your chance that day to be the savior of everyone. You might just be able to save some people.
And in my mind too, just knowing if you're carrying that gun, and if that thing comes out, right? If you pull that gun out, in my mind, I'm using that gun. I'm actually going to shoot someone with that gun, because in my state we have a duty to retreat. Number one. Right. So that's the first thing. If I'm already retreating and someone's coming, and they won't leave me alone, then I have to pull the gun out. And then for good measure in my state, I have to say something like, put the fucking gun down. Whatever, right? Like I have to yell at someone.
Stop in the name of Christ.
Stop in the name of my brother in Christ. Please stop. No, you have to sort of yell at someone and stuff, whatever.
Are you aware that you are breaking the law by trying to murder me?
Sir, this is a gun-free zone.
Sir, wait. So, but when that thing comes out, that's it. It's lights out. Other than that, it's staying away. I'm not going to try to, personally, I'm not trying to use it as a deterrent. I'm not trying to do anything but do the job that the gun's meant to do, stop a threat, so that others or myself can live. So yeah, like, you have to be prepared for that mentally. And in my mind, when I put that gun out, I'm like, okay, when I do that press check and make sure I've got one chambered, because I don't run a SIG, I always kind of go, okay. And I put it in, I'm like, shit's hot now. Like it's ready to go, and that's kind of like my moment of like Zen of like, okay, I'm carrying a gun today. I'm carrying a gun outside. Something could go down. Be ready, and it just feeling the gun on my person. And granted, I don't carry as much as you do, Brett, right? Because I'm carrying in the shop mainly, but just feeling the gun on my person puts it in my head. Like, it's like, oh yeah, there's that thing that I may have to go to. So yeah.
Yeah. And it's like, you don't want to be, it sucks when people accuse, like people who don't understand concealed carry, that it's like, if you carry a gun, you are a hammer looking for a nail. And that's not it at all. It's
Bullshit.
just, it's one of those things where if something arises, I am prepared to respond with appropriate force. That's what it is.
And I think, like, for me personally, right? Let's say something goes down 9 times out of 10. I could most people who are paying attention could probably see it coming and just get the fuck out. Right.
Yeah.
But to me personally, if I see it coming, I would rather intervene. Now, I'm not going to intervene. I'm not going to try and stop the dude with the gun without a gun. I mean, if I have to, then it is what it is. But I'd rather have, okay, not this gun. I'd rather have a gun to do something about it with. Right.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, right? Even in non-professional environments, I always try and carry something.
Yep.
Something that give me the advantage of just my hands. Yeah. Because whether or not you know jujitsu, what have you, if someone has a lethal weapon,
you're behind the 8 ball for sure.
Right. And so even if you have a knife, right? Something, so because let's say you can hide around a corner or something with a knife or a baseball bat or whatever. Improvise, right? Grab a pole, something. Yeah. But I would always, weapons normally give you an advantage, right? Weight, sharpness, something. Distance as well. If you're using a firearm or if you can just get away from it. But my whole thing is like this. Like, there's plenty of times I have gone out on certain occasions and I don't, not recently, but every so often I go somewhere and I just don't have a gun for one reason or another. Right. And it's in a situation though, where I'm not like super concerned, or it's not like as close, because I'm not it's rare and I'm not comfortable. It's like, it's weird, but I'm like, you know what? If something happened right now, I'd probably be able to react fast enough and just get the fuck out. Right.
Yeah.
But in other situations, and it also changes how I carry. Like when I carry with the Voyager, I normally don't carry a spare magazine because the 19 kind of fully fills it. But if I'm going out, then I don't have one of my spare Glock mags here, but if I'm going out with other people, with, you know, with family members, with loved ones, then I'll also probably carry more ammunition, right? Because now I have more people to defend and I have more things to worry about versus, you know, a Glock 19 with one mag could probably get me through most things on my own. Yep. When there's more individuals to worry about, that's when you want that. Personally, I try and carry a reload as much as I can, but if I'm wearing gym shorts and this, I really don't have room for a reload, right? I'll bring my pants down and then, you know, then I'll look like a threat. But that could be taken out of context. Anyways, but the point is, I'd like to have it be as capable as possible, right? To me, a Glock 19 is pretty much that, right? Obviously, a 17, you know, full size gun, 2 more rounds, full capacity, great. But I can pretty much do the same stuff with both these guns. I prefer this, but I can pretty much do it with this. So I personally have gone away from even like the macro. That's one other reason. It's like, I can carry this just fine. Yeah, it carries more bullets, but it's easier to shoot. And
it's softer shooter.
It's a softer shooter.
And it's comfortable.
It takes Glock magazines. Like in my vehicle, around my home, I have tons of Glock magazines. I also have some other Glocks, but I have tons of magazines. So if I needed to, I could grab like a 33 round mag and like pop that shit in there and obviously be a little more effective or have more reloads. So that's the other thing you can think about is like your ecosystem of what you're carrying. Because if you carry one weird gun, like a macro, but then
Staccato.
everything else, right? Well, and everything else is a Glock that you own.
Yep.
What is your ecosystem of all your other products, all your things you have, right? Like if all of a sudden, if you're carrying, I'm carrying my little tiny pocket pistol today. Okay, well, what if now you're in a road rage incident or some shit goes down? Like a lot of people do not realize the shit that goes down on highways. Oh yeah. And it gets bad. And like, those are like I've seen some extended gunfights on highways.
Oh yeah, and no one's coming to save you.
Yeah, like what? Everyone's fucking fleeing, panicking. The cops can take forever to get to you if you're in the middle of nowhere on a highway or something. So if you just have this thing and like with a 17 round mag and everything else in your car's Glock mags, where you're gonna reload this magazine in the middle of your fight? No, like to me, if something goes down, right? Maybe you live in California, you'll have to do it that way. But if something goes down. It's so sad. If something goes down in my car, I have a ton of Glock magazines and I can grab a pack, start reloading. I've got medical, all sorts of shit. And that's everything as well. There's more to EDC than the gun, right? Brett carries pepper spray. I don't. I carry knives, flashlights, tourniquets, medical, stuff like that. And I don't think you have to carry medical. I would say yes, just because, you know, if you get shot or your loved one gets shot, how can you address that?
So I carry on my person, like I have like a Spiritus fanny sack that I usually run. And in there I have like little things, like for example, like Band-Aids and like little ouchie stuff and, you know, medicine. Like if I'm not feeling so hot, maybe I'll have a Dayquil in there or something like that. I do carry whatever, right? Like pampering. And then I have a tourniquet. But when I do get that Voyager, I plan on running a tourniquet somewhere, and at least some like kind of a wound dressing or something to stuff the wound with, like maybe a Z-cloth, something like that. Because I do have that skill set, right? Like, and why not maximize? But the vehicle, and this is where I do really like some of the stuff that Mike Glover puts out. He talks about the vehicle being as an extension of the home, right? Like, so in my vehicle, in my driver's side and passenger side, what do you call it? The oh my God, I'm spacing on where I can like block the light that's coming in, the thing that flips down up front. Come on, guys, help me with this.
Your visor?
My visor. Yes. So the stupid visor on the visors, God, I can't believe I forgot that. Has tourniquets on there, Cat TQ on each one, right? I also have them in the back. I even have a stupid one of those rats tourniquets because my kids are pretty still small. You know what I mean? So that elastic might actually be able to help with my kid. I do have like a more extensive medical pouch in there and all kinds of other tools, like because I have kind of an overland rig. So, you know, I have all kinds of stuff in my rig at all times. So that is an extension. Like if I had to just bug out with what was in my truck, I have a get home bag. You know, I have some sustenance in there. So yeah, like you carry to you EDC
to survive.
But I mean, within practicality. In my vehicle,
Yes.
yeah, that's one thing. On my person, yeah, I have a little teeny tiny stream light, pen light, and a tourniquet, and a couple ouchie things, and my keys, and that's about it.
I
This
mean,
one expired in 2013.
I'm sure.
Is it still okay to eat? Like, it's gonna make me sick.
As long as you eat it with a Snickers, you should be good.
Okay.
Dude, I mean, I don't get why those. I know why. I get it. The fibers, dude.
Well, it's like body armor that expires. It's also part of their warranty. Their warranty on body armor lasts 5 years. Body armor will last you like until it like gets shot.
Yeah. And I also want to mention pepper spray. I carry pepper spray for two reasons. Number one, like if I'm about to go hands on with somebody, like pepper spray is probably not coming out. But pepper spray, one for dogs. Because the last thing I want is to have to discharge my firearm in city limits, during a dog attack. Is it probably going to be fine? Yeah. But like, all of a sudden now we're talking about chunks of concrete, bullet fragments, maybe hitting the owner in the leg. And then I got to deal with that shit. So it's great for dogs. And number two, few times have to go like downtown Phoenix. You get some homeless guy following you. You know what I mean? And he's not necessarily going to fight you, but he's not responding to verbal. Because, maybe he's on drugs or spacing out or just really dehydrated. Who knows? But anyways, it's like, hey, leave me alone. I want nothing to do with you. And he keeps coming. It gives you a punch from a distance.
It's not
so that you can maybe just avoid that altogether.
For sure.
But I don't view it as an alternative to anything that would it could be, it's bad news when not used.
Out of curiosity, what pepper spray are you carrying? Because I know that not all pepper sprays are built equal.
Yeah, I carry a keychain. Got it at CVS. Now, I have Palm pepper spray just because it's like, one, I actually like their formula. It's surprisingly good for what it is. Yeah,
good flavor.
And, oh yeah.
If your steak's not seasoned well, you just add a little on there.
Yeah, just. And number two, it is really small. It's got a little pocket clip on there, so just carry it like a pocket knife. And just because it's there doesn't mean I have to use it, but it's an option. It's like, okay, now I have access to multiple things. It's like, yeah, I have a knife and a firearm, but pepper spray is just one extra thing if there's a dog attack or something.
Right on.
Yeah, I mean, I think I know some people who carry tasers. There's obviously their argued effectiveness, but I think there's one that looks like almost like a remote control. I think I've seen, like, it's like smaller and it shoots like one probe and it's like the 45-second cycle or whatever. Yeah, it's not bad. Depending
what if there's two dudes?
Well, then the second guy you just shoot, obviously. That's not legal advice, everyone. Don't sue me. But no, I mean, I think, ultimately it's all like situational, where you live, where you are. I just don't carry pepper spray because for me, I'd rather not deal with it. I'd rather just literally fight people than get pepper spray on my face. Yeah. But that's me. But for other individuals, it might work better for you. Maybe you're someone who fighting is not a great option. Maybe you're arthritic. Maybe you're an old person. Maybe you're a small female.
I just don't like touching people. Like, that's my. If I can avoid touching somebody, like cutting my finger on their tooth and getting AIDS,
dude, I'm a trained grappler and I still don't want to touch someone. Oh, yeah. So I totally get. I bring
latex gloves everywhere I go. That's what I mean. I just put those on. All right, sir, it's time for your cavity inspection.
Yep. Yeah. Shoulder length glove.
Listen, I'll tell you this. There are dudes that I've trained with, right? Like that are gross enough and they're supposed to like know hygiene, come into jiu-jitsu class. Like it's kind of like it's a spoken rule. It's not an unspoken rule. It's common human decency for sure, but people don't have that. And then like some guys, like like if you were like the gi, which is like the kimono, the uniform, whatever. Yeah, I remember this one guy, like you'd have a white kimono and his was yellow. From like maybe, and you could smell them. It was like Pigpen from Peanuts. Like you could see the flies are like gathering, and like think about a homeless guy who you could smell him from a mile away, right? Like so, pepper spray. And I had an incident the other day that I would have felt much better if I had pepper spray. I might have even mentioned this. I was driving my wife around during the holidays. She has to deal with certain offices in the city, factories that she deals with in her industry. So I was driving her from place to place because we were dropping some of her stuff off to be taken care of. And while I was waiting, I was on the phone in the car, kind of like focused in on a phone call. It was like a stressful work call. And I didn't notice, but a dude to my left, he's like a homeless guy. He's like hanging around my window. I don't know for how long, but then like I hear like that sound of like the car door trying to be open, but my doors were locked, right? Like that thunk. Like he's like, "Hey, give me money," and I'm like, "Bro, get the fuck out of here," right? Like I just gave him that look, like I will fucking come out and beat your ass, and he took off or whatever. But think about it, like you don't want to have to deploy anything. You're in the city, right? Pepper spray, by the way, is illegal in New York. You cannot have it.
Well, can't you get like one? You have to buy it in New York, and you have to fill out like I am buying this pepper spray, like it's like a background check thing, and you could only use so much, and it's
something like
the mixture that doesn't do anything.
It's something like that. But what you could have, if you okay, so that Burna pistol that shoots pepper balls, the CO2.
Yes.
Right. You could have that in any place but New York City where you actually need it. So if you live in New York City, you could own a Burna in your apartment, but it can never leave your apartment. So someone can come into your house, you can shoot them with the pepper gun. Right.
What about just like a paintball gun that has pepper-filled paintballs?
Paintball guns are illegal to carry. Airsoft guns are illegal to carry in the city, and that's because of the types of interactions police are having, mainly with idiots who have no parents to tell them not to point them at cops, because they look like real guns.
The law will stop the people who don't know they shouldn't point it at cops.
Yep. Yeah, exactly.
Good job.
Exactly. New York, lowest common denominator, but things are changing. That's a good sign. We have a lot of good things coming, but point is, right, I would have loved to have had that pepper spray in the car. So if it did get funky where he like tried to smash the window out or something, I just roll the fucker down, hit him, right, and be on my merry way.
I mean, and I don't know New York's laws. I don't know every state's laws, but I know a lot of states that would be carjacking, and that's a violent, forcible felony. And then you could, give him those hot lead kisses.
That guy would have not even been taken in New York. When there's people on the streets out here who are getting caught with guns, there's virtually no felons have virtually no consequences, virtually none. And I learned all this. I knew it because of all the new laws. I'm sure you guys have heard the no bail or whatever, right? So they go
no cash bail.
No cash bail. So my buddies are cops, right? So they'll be writing someone up on some heinous shit, and then they're literally walking out and flipping them the bird on the way out of the, walking past their desk or whatever, while they're filling out their paperwork. And the guy's got 2 more hours of paperwork to do, before he gets to leave. So New York is a very difficult place, but I'm stuck here because of my wife, and I tried to make it down to a free state. I tried to move to Florida, which I was really excited for. I actually had a Florida driver's license, but that's neither here nor there. She yanked the plug last minute on me, and I love her. I have to keep her, so whatever. So I'm here in New York, but I don't care. Like, I'm going to fight and find a way to defend myself, because at the end of the day, any law that's repugnant to the Constitution is null and void. That's number one. Number two, there is, the moral law. Like, I mean, shit, the legal system may not give a shit about moral law, but I do as a person. Like, I care that I'm bound by duty to, take care of myself, take care of my family, be the protector. And if the cops aren't there, I mean, look, perfect example, guys, real quick. We had an incident where this biker gang got into a conflict with some dude in a Range Rover with his wife and 2-year-old baby in the back. And they started kicking the vehicle and everything. And they started trying to break into his vehicle over on the West Side Highway. And they were all smashing in the windows and everything. And he hit the gas in this Range Rover and rolled over some dude in the car, on his bike rather. And they chased him throughout Manhattan, miles and miles and miles. And they were going to kill him. Finally, they got by some police or whatever, right? And they were able to stop the incident. And the mayor of New York at the time was like, yeah, nope, you're good. And the police chief was like, you're good. You ran. You were trying to defend your family. You had no choice. And that dude that he ran down, he's in a wheelchair now. for
Is he gonna
life.
try and sue him?
Good luck, because there were actually cops either off duty or undercover with that gang. So good luck with that. I don't know what was going on there, but that
So
was
like the cops were undercover cops were there when it happened.
either undercover or off duty. There were cops rolling with the motorcycle gang. So and they were the guys that like they have like the crotch rockets, and they stop traffic so they could do burnouts and all that sort of stuff. And like they all go across in a line so that like their boys from behind can catch up to them, and they slow all traffic down. So it was really, flagrant. And they, you know what, Joker from Batman, you get what you deserve. You know what I mean? Like Joaquin Phoenix style. And you know what? He was right in that case, and he didn't get busted. This guy had a 2-year-old baby in the back, for crying out loud. So we do have some sensibility in this horrible place.
Well, I think more of if it wasn't as public, he might have been busted. I think it was so public because I remember kind of that incident because I think I heard about it.
Mm-hmm.
That I think is like eventually gets so public that they can't do anything about it. You know, like Rittenhouse. I mean, look at Rittenhouse, right? I mean, that's like the most clearest cut case of self-defense ever. And they wanted to crucify him, right? They wanted him to rot in prison for his life because he killed some pedophiles and some crazy leftists who were trying to kill him. And obvious self-defense, right? So I think that is the biggest. I think that's a big thing people worry about. And so, like, let me see if I can find the video. But so I obviously I make videos where you're probably watching this on my channel, or else you hacked my computer. So on one of my shorts, I talked about, prepping the trigger in your draw, right? And for those who don't understand this, I'm going to really quickly clarify this. If I'm drawing with the intention I want to shoot something, if I want to be shooting accurately, when I'm coming up, I want to prep to the wall so when I reach full presentation and get my sights, I can press the trigger, right? Sorry for flagging you, Brett. I know that's very mean.
It's okay. It excites me.
Oh,
gets the adrenaline pumping.
But and there was people in the comments of this video, here we go, who were very displeased, like this guy, and you never put a finger want to shoot, and you don't need to shoot, and you'll do it under stress and all this crap. And eventually, there's so many comments here.
That was very controversial.
Wait here.
Super controversial.
No, this is he's saying I'm gonna get sued for saying it. Let me find it where he. No. This one. So mentioning the Rittenhouse trial, and I think it scarred some people into like being turbo-tarded.
Mm-hmm.
That you already made up your mind as you drew a weapon that you're going to kill someone because you started pulling the trigger before it was even on target. Then that same prosecutor takes the weapon you use in its owner's manual and shows the jury the same blah, blah. So essentially saying that if you prep to the wall before you shoot, you're going to go to prison, right? And there's a lot of these really stupid like people out there. And I'm not trying to like target this guy. Don't like go send him death threats or like be respectful of the internet. In fact, some of these people, they'll still be cordial about it. But I'll still say they're being a little bit turbo-tarded, and and I'm not trying to be an ass. It's just what you're saying is very stupid. So we're going to tell the internet that you're being stupid because you posted on the internet for everyone to see. Just like you can say that I'm being stupid on the things I post on the internet for everyone to see. But anyways, point aside, a lot of people are very scarred and are afraid to do anything when it comes to concealed carry because it's like, oh, I'm going to go to prison. Oh, if I stipple my gun, I'm going to go to prison. If I change my sights, I'm going to go to prison. If I change my trigger, I'm going to go to prison. If I run a weapon light, I'm going to go to prison. And it's like, who the what now? Like, it's so ridiculous. And
if it's a good shoot, it's a good shoot.
Yes.
And yes, you may get a froggy, lawyer, defense attorney or something, but you're really, at the end of the day, they're going to say either you had the right to shoot the guy or you didn't. Well, who gives a shit if your gun was more efficient?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think the issue is the civil suit. Right. Like it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, if it's a good shoot, you're probably not going to have a problem. It's the civil suit and then making a case against you being a Rambo and you like, wanting to shoot somebody and like, the hammer looking for the nail and making that case
and that's
for a jury in the civil suit. That could,
and, flash towards enemy or whatever. Those do not put those on your gun. Like I honestly, one, it's a giant waste of money. So I would never waste your money on that personally. Like just spend it on like ammo or like on optic or any sort of good modification. And two, yes, that is the one thing that either can screw you over civilly or could put you in prison, because you're like, yes, this gun is here to kill people.
But the problem is like an asshole attorney in a civil case, a jury's not going to know what the hell stippling on a gun is. They might not know what a red dot is, but the thing is they could make the case and say, you had the forethought to stipple your gun to make yourself a more efficient killer with a handgun. And the thing is, then it's in the hands of the jury. Yeah. So it's one of those things that I understand.
And your lawyer.
I understand the pause, but you need to be able to communicate to your lawyer and have them communicate why having stippling on your pistol is there for safety, your safety and other people's safety, because it allows you to more accurately place purposeful shots defensively
and ensure that no one takes your gun from you, right?
That too, exactly. So you can make this case.
Sage Dynamics has a very good video on this of like literally he breaks down a fully modded agency gun, which has like the most mods you could do. Exactly. Everything's changed, right? And he's like, I have the optic because of these reasons, and I have the light for PID. I have a better trigger so I can make more accurate shots, right?
Yep.
And ultimately, if you put in a trigger that leads to something unsafe, that causes something to happen, well, yeah, that's on you. Or if you shoot someone accidentally, like, and this is the thing I want to say, oh, well, if you shoot someone accidentally, then, or someone gets shot in the crossfire, then you're going to get, then you'll be more liable because you modified your trigger. Did we forget the part where you just shot like an innocent bystander? Like,
exactly.
That's the thing is I think people skip a part and then get to the conclusion, and they don't think about the reasoning. They just go to the effect, not the cause.
Yep.
And it's like, if you have a modded gun, is it potential someone could civilly try and do something about it? Absolutely. Even if you have a stock gun, right? Well, he had a gun. That means he was going around wanting to kill someone, right? Like,
exactly.
I could make these arguments all day long. Well, why did he shoot him? He didn't have to shoot him. He could have shot him in the leg. The president of the United States said so, right? Like, there's all sorts of arguments that could be made at the end of the day. Like, and I'm not a lawyer or anything, and I could make 100 arguments that anyone who carries a gun is a mass murderer waiting to happen, and you instantly, like, you're the worst, and I could make that case easily in court, right?
Yep.
So at the end of the day, if you go around your whole life worrying about your consequences in court about your actions, no, worry about the moral consequences of your actions, right? And then I say moral, legal, and then whatever else that concerns you. But I think moral first, right? Because legal to me is not the end all be all.
Yep.
Because at the end of the day, let's say you live in some state with some unconstitutional laws.
Dun dun dun.
And you have to do something that breaks those laws to save your family, right? You're in a duty to retreat state, perhaps, but you know what's going to happen, right? Your kids are in the other room or something. It's like, oh, well, you have to retreat. Well, but my kids, right? And I don't know how that works legally, but I'm sure there's at least a state or some DA that'd be like, well, he should have retreated, but his kid's in the other room, and if he left the house, the kid would have been murdered, right? So like, no, I'm gonna push this guy and kill him, right?
Yeah, I think it's a case by case basis, obviously, right? And you're right. I think spot on by saying you have certain moral obligations as well. That's why they try to teach you all these other kind of techniques like de-escalation and all this stuff, because morally they don't want you to take life, but you were pushed. If you can prove to a jury that you were pushed into a corner, like, for example, if I do have my kids on me and I can't run with two 10-year-old and an 8-year-old or a 5-year-old or a 4-year-old, right? Like, then what choice did I have in that moment? And what jury is going to say, give me one or two parents on that jury, right? What are they going to say? Oh, yeah, like, absolutely. He had to take care of his kids. There's no question. That's that fatherly, motherly instinct that takes over. That's very human. And you think that some thug who, that old violin, story, like, he grew up without a father and he was poor.
Like the George Zimmerman thing, where it's like, oh, look at this poor 12-year-old kid that he murdered, who was 20-something and was like this giant dude beating his ass. But they'll show him the picture of when he was like 13 years old and was such a nice kid.
Yeah. I mean, listen, regardless, right? Like, it doesn't matter at that point when you're defending your family as that in that instance, right? Or if you have nowhere to go, that you have a duty to retreat unless you have nowhere to go. For example, let's just say Rittenhouse had a duty to retreat. He was, and then they hit him with a skateboard while he was retreating, and then they chased him down, and he fell on his back, right? And he, from fucking supine, like, puts one through that kid's heart, right? Beautiful shot, Kyle. If you're listening, respect. And that forward assist, I was feeling it. But like, yes, he had nowhere else to go. So what could possibly be
And
done?
that's the thing. It's like, how far are you supposed to retreat? Were you supposed to run like 10 miles retreating?
Right.
Like,
Right.
it's ridiculous on its face. Any sort of duty to retreat. Like, so the criminal's worth more than me. And like, you have the arguments like, oh, what, your property is worth more than his life? It's like, no.
Yes.
I mean, I think yes, but also that's not the point. The point is
here's why I'm going to tell you
life as soon as he chose
yes.
to
Yes.
value my property over my life, right? Like, 'cause
Right.
that's ultimately, it's like, I don't know what he's going to do.
Over his
right?
own life. No,
Exactly.
sorry. See, if you're a criminal, unfortunately, these criminals are out here wilding because no one's doing anything about it. If you're a criminal, you need to know that if I break into this house, there's a good potential that I'm going to lose my life. Or if I'm going to stop someone on the street, there's a good potential that I'm going to lose my life. Right? Like, so if I know that and I still do it anyway, shit's on you, buddy. And I understand that we get into a court of law and you get some lefty, defense attorney, you know what I mean? It's going to get twisted, all that sort of stuff. I understand. But at the end of the day, I'd rather be alive and that motherfucker dead if he's really legitimately threatening my life or forget it. I don't care if I go to jail if my kids are alive and well and everything's fine.
If it means my loved one's alive, I would gladly go to prison for the rest of my life. If it meant like they don't die or get raped or whatever.
100%.
Like, that's the thing ultimately is, I'm not just carrying for me, right? I'm carrying because I'm with my loved ones. I'm with my family, all these other things, right? Yeah. And I might be able to run, but can they run? Maybe I'm with one of my, a grandparent or an aunt or an uncle or someone who's elderly who can't run, right? They can't run away. I have to fight. I have to bring the fight to the bad guy because the bad guy's coming our way, right? And there's a whole thing as well is, and I know, and this is not legal advice, but a lot of people like, oh, there is an advantage, especially like an active shooter situation. Let's say for one reason or another, you have an elderly grandma, or you're in a situation where you have no escape avenues, right? It makes sense to set up an ambush, to, flank, to use tactics and strategy, right? Marksmanship's first, but fitness comes first, then marksmanship, then tactics. That's the way I order things. And it's important to have those things and be able to use those. And like I said earlier, cops don't want to shoot people in the back. That might be your opportunity to stop the threat. So depending on the situation you're in, if you're in here for elderly grandma who, can barely walk, what are you going to do? Run away and leave her to die? It's like, no, I'm going then, in that situation, you might want to push the dude when he's not expecting it and take him out. Because ultimately these active shooters, I can't speak for all of them, but if you watch footage of some of them, if you watch the way some of them do their stuff, they get easily taken out when someone with a gun shows up because they're literally, it's like literally just someone just shooting fish in a bottle. So they're not really cognizant of like people around them. They're not thinking the same way like
that one dude in Texas who headshotted that guy in the church, single shot. Yes.
Wilson, yeah.
Yes. God bless you, sir. I mean, like, that's what I'm talking about. Like right there, what retreat? That guy saved an entire congregation from being killed by some psychopath, right? Because he had seen the moral obligation. He had the wherewithal to do something about it, and he did something about it from 25 yards or whatever it was right there on the spot. So good.
And just like piggybacking, just like going back to what we were saying as far as EDC and like being ready to use it. And I mentioned that guy that had a concealed carry firearm on him in the Eli Dicken case that was killed. You look at that Jack Wilson church shooting as well. The first guy that gets shot was trying to draw his gun. He was church security, trying to draw his gun and got shot because he was too slow. He had like a 3-second draw and he needed like a 2.5-second draw.
Wow.
So just again, put yourself in that situation and know that there are just certain things that you need to have.
Yeah.
And one of them is a draw that is like under 2 seconds. And that is being very generous. That is as generous as you can be, is under 2 seconds.
And like in that same video about prepping the trigger to the wall in your draw, they're like, oh, well, like if you draw a gun, how do you know you're actually going to use it? And like, if you draw the gun, just presenting the gun's going to stop the threat probably. I'm like, there's times where you need to draw your gun and imminently use it.
Yep.
And a lot of people don't prepare for that. Like either there's somewhere where they can't draw and then you can dry fire your draw, right? Like,
oh yeah,
dry fire is a huge thing, people. So many people go out there and they might shoot in the range. They might be an okay shot, but they're not actually ready to deploy their firearm. It's like, it's like super deep concealment. Like, this is their belt and this is their grip, right? Like this is the thing. You want your grip if this is your belt line, like here,
Yeah.
right? Like this
Yep,
is where
yep.
like you need full access to the gun. I get deep concealment, but 9 times out of 10, people are just carrying because that's how they carry and it's comfortable. And so that gun's tucked away, like
Or
over
pocket
their
carry.
ass cheek.
In a
Pocket carry,
Right.
especially, right? These situations are like cargo. I've seen people carrying cargo pants where you have to like open the flap and pull it out. Like even this, I've gotten pretty fast. I'm gonna, I've put it on the shot timer a couple times. I've got about a 1.5 out of it, right? I probably could work more to get a little faster. But once again, I'm carrying this when, I'm not carrying this or I'm not carrying this. And it's simply, because the gym, running, something, but I'm still armed and I've gotten decently fast with it. But I can still draw faster, obviously, outside the waistband or even an inside the waistband. But most people just don't practice, and it'll show. Now, there's plenty of people who've used their guns with literally no proficiency and have won, right? Countless examples.
Happens all the time.
Exactly. Now, there's also countless examples where people draw their guns, don't know how to use them, and like there's the video, and it was on ASP's channel, Active Self-Protection, where this store owner only had like 6 rounds, shot them all, missed like every round, and then played dead, which worked. Which actually, I was looking at some videos, that works a lot.
It
Interestingly,
does.
because if the criminal isn't there to kill you, then just playing dead, they'll probably just take your shit and leave. I'm not recommending it as a strategy because that's a giant gamble.
Oh yeah. No, it's like the same psychology of like if you look at all of these defensive encounters, concealment, they won't shoot at you. Because it's like psychologically, they think that it's cover. Like you stand behind a sign that they can shoot through, they're gonna pause and they're not gonna shoot through that. They're gonna look for their shot around the sign, even though they could just shoot through it.
I also tell people practice shooting through things.
Yeah.
Or at least thinking about it, like put up a target as a barrier or something. Like practice visualizing your target behind it. Because you can shoot through. Like think outside the box. Like drywall the wall behind me. Easily you could shoot that with anything. Right. And if there's a bad guy on the other side of that wall, and I know there's just a bad guy, why peek around? I can start shooting through that wall, lay some shots down, push around the corner, and then finish taking them out on the other side of the hallway. So it's a lot of people don't, and it goes back to being able to be ruthless, right? You have to be as ruthless as the bad guy, right? You have to be, like in law enforcement, they talk about officer safety is a big thing, and to me. Anything, you can boil down everything. Do you have to be a better killer than whoever's trying to kill you at the end of the day? That's all it is.
I want to just say one quick thing before I have to actually bail you guys.
So we're gonna wrap up anyway. So say your thing and we'll wrap it up.
Like it's not necessarily ruthlessness. It's what it's going to take to get you out of that situation. Like you can have your emotional discussion with yourself about it afterwards, but in that moment, it's these are a list of things to do. And I know it's going to be really hard not to have because you're adrenalized and everything like that. But really, I wouldn't even plague my thoughts about it emotionally until afterwards when you're dealing with the trauma of the event, right? Because there will be trauma with that event. Taking a life is no little thing. And it may hit, I'm sure it hits everyone different. I've never done it, obviously. So I don't know what will happen, right? And I don't want to pretend to act like I'm like, oh, well, you know what? You asked for it, so I gave it to him, man. Like you just took a life, you have to consider that later. But prior, it's a list of priorities. Okay, you hear, I'm going to take the church thing since we're talking about some fires now broken out in the church. I know it's from behind me. I dive on my children. I put them under the pew before I pull my weapon, and then I look to see where this shooter is gone, and I can engage that shooter because most churches are pretty small. I'm not going to get the opportunity probably to just run out of that place with my kids, particularly because guess what? The way churches are made, we're facing the back of the church.
The doors are behind you.
And the doors are behind us, right? Exactly. We're facing the front of the church, quote unquote, the altar, and the doors are behind me. So, the priority list is dive on children, get them to sit under where they could hide in concealment, and then try to take out the threat. Poke your head out, look, see where it is, and then if you can take the shot, squeeze the trigger and take the shot. And then afterwards dealing with that emotion. Oh my God, I killed a man. Yeah, who was trying to kill all of you.
I'm Midas, I agree with you. The thing is, we're aware of how mean these killers are. and you need to be meaner than them to beat them in that moment. You have to be able to flip the switch. I'm not saying be a mean person. I'm not saying be a ruthless person. I'm saying
You have
be
to
able
have the ability.
flip the switch to get meaner than them, because you have to want them to stop what they're doing more than they want to kill you. That's the mindset that it takes.
The violence of action. Like you watch most like police shootings and stuff, the cops that take them out quickly is the cops that just fucking push them and take them out.
That's right.
I'm not advocating for any tactics here. We're just talking. But you watch shootings where the bad guy gets dropped, and it's the person who is more aggressive than the bad guy, who's like just pushes the bad guy, pushes the car that the bad guy's shooting out of. Because most of these bad guys, they're the wolf, right? The wolf sheepdog. I hate that, but they're the aggressor, and they're not anticipating to be aggressed. And so when you push them, they have fears. They're not some badass, right? They're like, I have the gun, and I got the drop on this cop or this civilian or whatever. So they think they have the advantage. So as soon as you push them, that normally will freak them out. And your aggressiveness, if you're aggressive enough, may be able to overtake theirs.
But I would say I would warn against an emotional response, because that, like, for example, I took my CCW course, and the teacher had us yelling, put down the gun, right before we fired the qual, right? And he was trying to tire out our shoulders, had us hold it high ready, so on and so forth, right? The act of yelling actually tightened my body up so much more, right? So like when I'm fighting someone over the course of the years that I've competed as a competitive fighter and also as a jiu-jitsu like player and all that sort of stuff, you know, I'm breaking down the situation, even if it's an intense one, right? Like I'm going against someone who's really bigger and stronger and more aggressive than me, right? I'm breaking down the situation into mentally into what needs to be taken care of, and that's what I was trying to get across, right? Like, it may be perceived as aggressive for me to get in there with the first shot, right? But it's the mindset is to prioritize and then hit everything on your priority list, right? Did I get to cover, or did I have to, like Midas said, push them and shoot and be the first one on the trigger, right? I don't perceive that as ruthless, in my humble opinion, right? I just perceive that as what needed to be done in order to escape the situation.
I think you can be ruthless and focused. I don't think it has to come from a place of emotion.
It's not necessarily emotion.
Yeah.
Right? Maybe aggressive sounds emotional, but it's more of like how you're acting, right? Because this is the thing, you could, what I mean by ruthless is you cannot think about the moral implications of what you're doing. Where obviously you do the right thing, but you can't think about I'm about to kill someone. It's like I'm about to stop. However, you have to think about it. I'm about to stop someone who wants to hurt me.
Pragmatism of the situation, right?
It's go time,
right? Yeah. However you want to word it. But anyways, guys, we're gonna wrap it up. I'm going for a bit. Pete, how can people find you, subscribe to you, stalk you, all that good stuff?
Find me at TFN15 on YouTube and TFN.15 on Instagram.
All right. And Brett, where can people find you? All that good stuff.
You can say hi to me on YouTube at Nightwood Guns and Instagram at Nightwood Guns.
All right. Thanks for watching, guys. Like, subscribe, comment down below what you want to hear us talk about next, and any guests you might want to have on next. We have some pretty interesting ones lined up. See you later.